joined today by Jason Carroll, CEO of Tryptamine. Jason, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Appointed CEO in October of last year, what attracted you to the company and its investment proposition?
Well, I've been working in the industry for a long time, 34 years in pharmaceuticals, but when I looked at Tryptamine, I saw data that I'd never seen before, especially in binge eating. I never thought I'd be working in the psychedelics field, but for me it's another pharmaceutical agent. It's a chance to help people. So from the point of view of the data, in binge eating there's so few things you can use to help patients. But to get an 80% reduction in binge eating with one dose of product, I'd never seen anything like it. I was amazed and I just couldn't help but join and invest.
And what does the technology mean from a patient point of view?
You're looking at patients that have tried just about everything there is, especially in conditions where there's very little treatment availability. The areas we're looking at in terms of binge eating, in terms of fibromyalgia, in terms of irritable bowel syndrome, these are conditions that have very few treatment options. And what we're offering them is an opportunity for an option that will actually work for them and treat the cause of their condition, not just symptomatic. So that's the benefit we're offering to patients through our clinical program.
And how advanced is it?
We're actually in phase 2 in the US. We're using oral psilocybin in the US. In Australia we're using IV psilocin, which is the active ingredient in psilocybin. So the idea is we get the oral study first, and then we get that data and we can then transfer that into the Australian work we're doing with IV.
Where to from here? What are the plans?
Well, we'd like to get our first indication and get actually a registration of a psychedelic in Australia. That would be a huge step forward, not just for Tryptamine, but for the whole industry. Because even though psychedelics have been looked at for the past 38 years, not one approval has yet happened in Australia because no one's doing the right clinical program to get the right data. We intend to change that.
As you mentioned, you have a large amount of experience in the pharmaceutical industry. How does that experience correlate to what you're doing now with Tryptamine?
Actually, thank you for that. It's really important because people say that experience doesn't always mean that much, but I can tell you that experience means an awful lot. There are things that I've done many times before. When you're looking at an IV treatment for a patient, for instance, I've worked in the US for a number of years where I had to work on getting an IV use of a product to a group of people that didn't use IV as historically, so gastroenterologists. Getting them to use an IV product and understand the value of it for their patients gives me the opportunity to do the same thing here with IV as well. Plus history in getting drugs approved, getting them reimbursed, getting them listed, getting them sold and commercialised. I've got experience over the last 3 decades in Johnson & Johnson and a number of other companies that will help me do that for Tryptamine.
From an investor point of view, what are some of the milestones they should be focusing on over the next 6 to 12 months?
There are a couple that we should be looking at. The first is the IV infusion study. It's happening in Adelaide right now. We've had 5 patients in out of the total of 11 that will be using the IV, and this is first in world stuff. No one's ever had an infusion for 2 hours before in the world. So doing that is pretty cool in Australia. The other one is fibromyalgia. We have a feeder study for oral psilocybin that's just gone into patients in fibromyalgia. The results of that study will be out on August the 7th. So again, that could be a real inflection point for the company. When we can show its use in fibromyalgia, it means that we'll get our patent enforced for that condition. So that's good for our investors.
And are you seeing much M&A in this space?
There's actually more happening now. It was very quiet for a long time, especially in the pharmaceutical industry, and after working in that for so many years, you have a lot of products that are at risk of being moved along with something that's going to change the market so much, such as psychedelics. But the deal that comes to mind is one with AbbVie and a small company called Gilgamesh. About 3 months ago, they had a small company in preclinical to phase 2. The purchase was done for $65 million upfront plus $1.97 billion in milestones. So a $2 billion deal with a small company in psychedelics. And I think that's going to be the first company to start moving towards a new way in which they'll be looking at psychedelic medicines.
Skin in the game, significant experience, a quality team and a quality product. Exciting times ahead for Tryptamine and its shareholders. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for the time.